and the related.
So,
How?
so why does CSO put mining and quarrying in the secondary sector?
See, in India, your question requires some context. So I will give the context first and then answer you. You know, when we talked about it, the breakup of the structure of the economy, we said primary, natural resources. Secondary, physical value added. Physical value, manufacturing, industry, that is electricity, water. Tertiary is services, intangible, invisible, and so on. Now the candidate asks, minerals are natural. Everywhere in the world they are considered a part of the primary sector, along with agriculture, fisheries, animal husbandry, and so on. Why is it that we put them in the secondary sector? See, basically you have a choice there. They are not like rice. You know, there are minerals and you have to extract them and so on. And you have to add value, only then they are consumable, unlike rice. Rice you don't have to add. You know, that is one explanation. Another is, we want to show that in the secondary sector our economy is large. Without showing minerals, mining in secondary sector, the contribution of the secondary sector will shrink. Today it is this much. Without the mining sector it will be this much. And if you put that in the primary is largely synonymous with agriculture. So agriculture will show to be 22, 21, 23, and the world will not like you. It doesn't look good because the primary sector's contribution always has to be, third after services and manufacturing in course of time. So looks like strategically it's been incorporated in order to show that the secondary sector is large. But otherwise you have a choice. They are not like agriculture. You have to extract them, that requires machinery. You have to add value, only then they are consumable. There is a choice. So we chose to keep it in the secondary sector. Other than that, there is no explanation available. I am sure you are convinced about it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Anyone else with any other question? We already spent a couple of days. You should be having some questions. If you have few seconds, I'll wait.
There was a question in the MCQ.
In the?
In the MCQs.
Oh, okay. Yesterday. Yeah, tell me.
In a scenario where consumer confidence is high but access to credit is restricted.
Consumer confidence is high and
Access to credit is restricted, what is the most likely impact on consumer?
so what are the multiples given? What is the right answer given? And why should you quarrel?
So I answered.
Raise your.
I answered as moderate decrease, but the answer is stagnation.
Stagnation. You see, confidence is high, but the rates are low, no?
Yeah.
Rates are high.
Credit is restricted.
Credit is restricted. See, my confidence is high. I will be an animal, but credit is restricted. How will I spend? You please tell me. When I don't spend, where is demand and where there is growth? So you picked what?
Moderate decrease.
You see, how does my confidence impact my consumption? Only when the rates are inviting, no? So, I'm glad you raised it, occasioned a discussion related to it. I'm glad. Up to you. Up to you. Increase if the credit is restricted, increase the ruled out. Is decrease ruled out? Confidence is high, even that is ruled out. So in between what is there? Stagnation. Yeah? Okay. Anyone else?
And if the confidence was low, then it would be?
Yeah?
If the confidence was low and the credit was restricted.
Oh, confidence is low, credit is restricted, confidence is low, I'll hold the money back. I won't spend, in which case, no? Yeah, contraction, slow down, whatever. Anyone else? Today, we have to, yesterday itself we began our discussion of GDP. What is it? GNP. What is it? Which is better? GNP or GDP? We concluded GDP, but GNP is also very good, please. GNP is very good. $100 billion our NRIs and others are sending because they are working outside, which is very good. They are adding 100 billion to our foreign currency reserves, very good. And also your image soft power grows pretty good, and your competitiveness is established if you are operating outside your economy. Yeah, all of them are good, but in comparison to GDP, but then there is another school of thought also. That school of thought says, promote GDP by inviting FDI in the services sector, but not in the manufacturing sector, because India gets polluted, world enjoys the rewards of the growth of India. Let China be polluted. Let's specialize in services sector. Let's export, get foreign currency. To the extent we can afford, let's import from China and confine pollution to China. Why should we get polluted? That's another school of thought. But then you see we require to shift our employees from agriculture to the manufacturing sector, which is an employment intensive sector. So for that we have no choice, we need to bring in the FDI into the manufacturing sector as well. So we can't be so advanced in our rationality. Everything netted out, we need to focus on manufacturing. The question came in the main, manufacturing. Main or prelim, the questions don't, get set on the planet Mars. They are right here, all around us. Everyone is talking about manufacturing, PLI, semiconductors, Make in India, manufacturing zones, SEZs. So the question had to come, etc. So, yesterday we began our discussion on the GDP and a little bit, and two candidates asked me GNP, GDP, what is this? I told you I'll go abstract, this is India and this is the world. Microsoft, American company, makes money in India. It's a part of our DP, it's a part of American NP. Assuming Microsoft, the company is registered in America. If the headquarters of Microsoft, legal purposes, Ireland, it's a part of Irish NP, India's DP. Mitsubishi, Toshiba, Sony, Hitachi, they're all Japanese companies. So NP, they're all operating in India. DP of India, NP of, Now I'll give you a picture where the choices are a little confusing. American company set up in Mexico. Yes, and we import, let's say, American company, whatever the company, let's say car maker, American GM, operating in Mexico, making cars in Mexico, DP, American NP. We import from Mexico. So is it a part of our DP? We import, obviously it will be a part of our net. We export 100 rupees, we import 200 rupees, so we deduct all that, there is a calculation for that. So it's not a part of our DP or NP. NP is America, Mexico is DP. It's just that financially it enters our books, but as far as making is concerned, it's not a part of our DP or NP. Only NP and DP are there, nothing else is there. We are not making, we are importing. It's financially, as a lump sum figure, it goes into our list. So, because there's only NP and DP, there's nothing else. We are not making it, nor are we owning the company that's making in Mexico. Now, we know about the intermediate goods, we know double counting, we know how to avoid that, all that we know. So you are estimating, always use the word estimate for GDP, because GDP numbers, for them to get conclusively final, it will take a millennium. Even the number, the GDP number of 23, 24, which you will get on the 10th of January, for quick, and then advance is April 1, May, whatever. After 4 years, when the NSO tells you this is the quantum of GDP in monetary terms in India 23, 24, that's not final. That they may say it's final, but okay, at that point you can say this is the GDP calculation. Calculation is when you have all the data. Estimate is when you are assuming the data, projecting the data. So if you call it estimate, examiner knows that, yeah, you are a professional in your talk and all that. So GDP, etc., nominal, real. We have to see nominal, real. We have seen gross and net. We need to see nominal, real. See, so what was the value of your GDP in rupee terms last year? 100 rupees. How many apples did you produce? The entire GDP of yours is apples. 10 apples, 100 rupees is the price of GDP, last year's price. This year you are going around saying that your GDP is valued at 120 rupees. There could be 40%, like Turkey numbers had come yesterday. I think 60% is the inflation. In Pakistan, about 40% is the inflation. So 120 rupees of GDP, the value of GDP in the current year, which is 20% more than the value of the GDP last year, am I to assume that you produced 20% more of apples? You could have produced more apples. Why 20%? You could have produced 50% more. Prices have fallen, so it's only 120. So what do I conclude about it? I know for sure at least one apple was produced. It is valued at 120 rupees. That's for sure. But I don't know how many apples you produced, and if you tell me, then I will know how much is the deflation or inflation. So you see, what's the point of telling others, we have produced, our GDP is 120 rupees. What is the point? I want to know, have you sweated? Are there more apple trees? Have you produced more apples? Has labor gone in? Capital gone in? I want to know the sweat side of the GDP and not the, headline. Headline can be anything. In fact, there is an industry which is, its core activity is headline management. So, I'm not impressed. I want to know the ground reality. So, for that, there's only one way. So, how much are you quoting? 120 rupees is the value of your GDP. And let's see, last year how much was it? 100. How many apples? 10 apples. So, between last year and now, let's see the prices. Consumer prices, the WPI, that's all we have. We don't have producer. So what we consume, see, what's the point of telling me the value of tomatoes wholesale? Don't tell me. I go to the market and buy 1 kg. Tell me consumer prices. What's the point of steel prices being indicated at the CPI level? Steel is bought, as I said, by the builder, by the factory. So some goods and services are bought at the wholesale level. You apply the WPI. So to the 120, you apply, let's say at the very simple elementary level, 60 rupees of the GDP consumer, not 60, so sorry, 80, 90 rupees of the GDP is at the consumer level, 30 rupees is at the WPI level. So to the 90, you apply the CPI, Consumer Price Index. How much is the CPI in the last 1 year? I would assume it grew by 7%. So from 120, cut 7% out, 90, cut 70 out, you get the number. To the other 30, you apply the WPI. That's where the problem is. That's where the problem is, that is where the question is. You know, WPI is in deflation. So, you produced more, but the market value is less because the WPI is in deflation. So, the 30 rupees of the goods for which you are applying WPI to take them back to the prices of last year, they are not 30 rupees worth of goods by last year price, 35 or 32. Because generally you grew up with the observation, experience that prices grow. 10 becomes 10.5. That is the norm. That's the norm wherever you go. So, I would understand 30 rupees worth of capital goods like steel, etc. This year prices, I would understand last year prices, you would get a number of 25. No, you're getting, last year they were 31. I hope you're following. This year they are 30. That's your, statistically it doesn't work well for the government. I'll tell you why. So, from the current to the last, nominal to real, you have to apply the deflator, take away the impact of prices, then you will know how much has actually been produced quantitatively, and that is what you should take as your guide for your policy, for your, everything else. Employment, everything depends upon what you produce, not the price it fetches you. Price is, it can be rigged also, inflation. So, from the current nominal to the real, when you have to take it, you have to apply the CPI for some, WPI for some. I gave you a simple example. Tomorrow the question in the prelim is going to be like this. You know, there is a deflator, we apply the consumer price index, wholesale price index to the number that we have this year to go to the actual level of production last year, and statements are given below, which ones are right. And believe me, if you think you have to know, read, only then you can answer, that is the fundamental mistake. You have the common sense. Capital goods are not consumer goods. I've never bought a capital good. I'm not a producer. I'm a consumer. So for the capital goods, deflator should be WPI because businesses buy them. And he'll give you tomatoes, onions or refrigerators for which the CPI deflator has to be applied. Isn't it simple? Do you have to learn anything for it? Is it not enough that your mind is open and observing, which is what it's been doing for a long while? No? Am I right or wrong? Just you're looking around, that is learning. So what am I saying? From the current, I'm not using the word constant yet. I could use the word constant, but the moment I say constant, you will go back all the way to the base year. And we haven't talked to the base year yet. Now from the current nominal to the real, when you utter the word real, immediately the accompanying word is constant. Real is real only when there is constant. What is constant here? Prices. Why? Last year's prices you applied to last year, last year's prices you applied to this year, and only then you will capture the inflation. Unless you take away the inflation, you won't know what exactly has been the real production. Real production. So that is what you call deflator. You know, after 4 years, you will find out the deflator for the whole economy. But I can't wait till then to find out what is the real state of the economy. Between last year and now, what's been the real production change? So they apply WPI and CPI. There is criticism. There is criticism. But are we interested in criticism? You could say, generally you could say application of WPI and CPI should be such that it should be appropriate. For capital goods and investment goods, let WPI be applied. For consumer goods, let CPI be applied. Then the deflation from the current to the last year will be, closer to ground level reality. In your own language, you'll write very well. So that is nominal to real, where you apply the deflator to remove the inflation to find out the actual change at the ground level in the quantum of production apples. Yeah, nominal to real. Now since I talked about the base year, I have to discuss it, the base year. Economy goes on innovating. 20 years back, ask your, seniors at home, how were you listening to music? DVD, and even senior more, tape recorder, cassette. They have gone into the museum. Today, it's in my time, camera. You had to buy a camera. Now there are phones with 3 cameras. The most pervasive thing in this world is camera, music. 40 years back, I was learning. Information was so scarce, I can't tell you. Somebody, okay, you are a history professor, to learn from you, because nobody else knew history and there's no information about history. Few books about history, history, economics, constitution, whatever. After that, there is more books, and then internet came. Information everywhere. Finance Commission, I can go into the Finance Commission report, interim and final. I can see MK Singh talking there. I am with the horse. So, this sort of innovation, new products. So, if you had, now let me talk about the base year. So, base year is what? You have to understand what you are producing. Are you producing more or less? You have to understand that. How will you know? You have to compare. And what do you compare with? You have to compare, last year you compare for immediate estimate of your GDP change. But last year was based on what? The year before, the year before, the year before. When did the series start? 93, 94. I told you tape recorders. If you go by 93, 94 base year, single out the tape recorder. If tape recorders were all that you produce in 93, 94, you are producing no tape recorder now. Your economy is non-functional. There is a vacuum, there is no economy. So what you compare with has to have meaning for the comparison. You compare today's production with a year in which the same product more or less was being produced. It can't be 93, 94. I told you tape recorder. It can't be 2004, 5. Where wasn't that iPhone wasn't there? A lot of things you are seeing today were not there in the economy in 2004, 5. So as the economy evolves, as new goods and services come into play, today, for a while now, India, nobody is saying anything with words. It's all symbols, flowers, greeting card. Youth of today has completely transformed. Communication transformed, the goods and services. So if you compare what is being produced today with 2004-5, then you will have strange, conclusions. What you were producing then, you are not producing now. So you get 0 here. What you are producing now, it wasn't there. So there's no comparison. So you have to compare the comparables. You can't have 4-5 or that 93-94 as a base year. Every 5 years, ideally, you have to decide on a new base year, and that base year is the basis for national income series for 5 years. After that, you change the base year because the economy is changing, you know, by the hour. Some of the sectors are changing by the hour, day. Definitely, I'm not exaggerating, some sectors. So what am I saying? There is a base year number 1. That base year, the production of the economy is the basis for estimate of your production in the years connected with the base year. You call it a series, number 2. And it's important that you advance the base year periodically so that the comparison is correct, number 3. All over the world it happens, therefore, for comparative reasons, globally, you have to do that, number 4. And you have to cut the inflation out. Okay, 120 rupees, base year 50 rupees. So base year 50, now 120, is it all inflation or is it goods and inflation, and what's the mix? You know, to cut the inflation out, number 1, to get the estimate, number 2, and global comparison, whatever, number 3, and you know, to capture the growth of the economy truthfully, which happens when you compare it with the recent economy, not ancient. For all these reasons, get a base year. Keep changing it periodically so that you know what the economy is up to. What are the criteria for selection of the base year? It has to be recent, otherwise you will be counting tape recorders. Recent, number 1. It has to be a stable year. It can't be the COVID year, 1920 it can't be, 2021 it can't be. It has to be a stable year, recent year, and data should be available. Without, you see, data collection, it is not that we are a technologically driven digital economy, data gets registered overnight. No. Data collection is a laborious process. Training has to be there. Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, you know. So it's not easy to collect the data. It takes a lot. I told you, in India, half the economy is informal economy. Informal economy is not registered. Who do you talk to? How many teacups have you sold? Who do you talk to? How many carpets have you sold? Etc., etc. How many vegetables you sold? You know, how many vehicles you repaired? Who do you talk to? You have to necessarily do a survey or project from the formal to informal, etc. I'll come back to informal. So you know why the base year is required? You know the uses of base year, the criteria based on which you select the base year, etc. Yes? Having said that, we have chosen the base year. Maybe before your prelim itself, maybe there'll be a new base year. Maybe not before the prelim, maybe before the main. But time is pretty ripe because we are already almost 10 years into the new base year. 10 years is a very long period because we are producing new things and they are not being counted. We are not producing certain things, they are being counted. And there is a double deduction going on here. And that is avoidable to know what's going on. So you know the base year. Why? The criteria based on which it is selected. And you know the base year was 11-12. And you adopted that in 15. Very outdated, very, very outdated. So that's about the base year. Now, base year is 11-12. Tomorrow when the PIB numbers, NSO numbers come about your GDP, second quarter, he'll give you. So when he is going to tell you, we have grown, the economy has grown in the second quarter of the current fiscal by, let's say, hopefully 7%. That 7% is in comparison to the same quarter last year. He'll also tell you the number of the constant. That is, he will compare it to the base year same quarter, and then from there till here he will tell you how far has been the quantitative growth, how far has been the nominal growth, which is inclusive of inflation. He will tell you all that, because you have to know. You have to know how much has been the inflation in the last, say, 10 years. You also have to know how much has been the real growth in the last 10 years. So these numbers you will get. So you know base year now. If you have some question on base year, I would love to answer. There is something else called base effect. You know base effect. Normally, base is 10, 12, whatever, 14, normally 10, 11, 12. But in an abnormal year, imagine in 20, 21, the first quarter, you fell by 25%. Close the factory, you fall, open the factory, you rise. So your base is 10. To that you added 1. So you grew to 11, and the rate of growth is 10%. But from 10 you fell to 7.5. That's because the factories are closed. No consumption, no demand, no supply, no growth. You fell. Most unusually you fell. And from 7.5, which is where you fell to, you opened the factory. Even if you have come to the normal of 10, on a base of 7.5, to get to 10, 25 on 7.5 would get you a number 33% is your growth. Base effect. Did you grow 30? You were normal. See, I get 80% marks. I had typhoid. I got 40 marks. And for the next exam, I was in perfect health. I got my 80. So can I say my growth is from 40 to 80, 100%? No. The norm is 80. I get 80. And I kept getting 80. I got 80 again. But the base being 40, this 80 looks like a 100% growth rate. You got it now? Have you?
Yes.
Very simple. This is called the base effect. Or India is the favorite economy of the world. Everyone has come, you know, and a lot of foreign direct investment, $100 billion. And from there, the next year you got only, you can't keep $100 billion every year. The next year you got only, say, 90. The 90 on, from 100 to 90 you fell, but 90 itself is big. So base being so high, you show a fall there statistically. Base being low, even if you got 80 from 70, there is a rise in percentage terms. So base effect is statistical illusion that happens because there is some abnormal event in the economy that either took the economy abnormally high or took the economy abnormally low. And because of that, expressed in percentage terms, there is an illusion of excessive fall or excessive rise. I'm sure you understood. If you haven't, you please ask me. You know this, that, you must ask me. So base effect is a wonderful, wonderful question. Take a few, I've got a graphic. Yeah, Dharmendra ji. Let's get into action on the graphic front. Base here, yeah. And I have a table also for this. Please, no hurry whatsoever. The simplest you can get. Most analytical with simple communication. It doesn't get simpler than this. Impossible. And of course, maybe you can try making it simpler in your own language.
Sir, when we used to compare the current year with the previous year, do we use the deflator?
Please come again.
When we used to compare the current year GDP with the base year's GDP, is it necessary or is it compulsory to use the deflator?
See, how else will you compare? What's the point of comparison? You won't know the actual production. No? For that, inflation has to be removed. Why else will you compare? Today, I am told my GDP is 200 rupees. Base year, it was 50 rupees. Hardly it's been 80 years. 4 times in 8 years? I'm suspicious. So let's remove the inflation and see, have I produced from 10 to 40 apples? Or has inflation been playing the mischief? I have to know. So deflator is the only way to tell you to get the real quantum of growth. The comparison means at the broadest level, cut the inflation out. Then you dissect it further. Agriculture gave me 22. Agriculture fell to 17. Manufacturing is picking up. Lots of FDI, whatever in the manufacturing. Services is stagnant. So you can dissect and see, what else has been happening in the economy. But basically, removal of inflation and getting to the real quantum of growth is the first work you are doing. Next is breaking it up and sectorally, within the sector, rice and wheat, automobiles, this and that. You got it? Yeah. Temporal relevances, this is 20. Almost we got a few toes of ours in 24. You're comparing it to 11, 12. A lot has changed. So try and fix it around 17, 18. But if you recall from 17, 18, every year has been unstable year. Initially we had one reform. Later we had another reform. Together they took toll. And by the time we were about to taste the fruit of the structural reform, COVID struck. And just about getting up from COVID, Putin struck. So, we are going from instability to instability. So, sooner we find some stable base, data and all that. The work is so hard that we suspended census also. What to speak of the GDP data? Maybe technology will help us. Absence of extreme events, normal economic conditions, same thing but separated, temporal relevance as close as possible. Not too close because the data is not there. Not too far because the comparison is unreal. Somewhere in between. I would understand. 11, 12 is the current base year. The closest you could get would be 15, 16, because from 16 onwards we've been, having these unusual events. 15, 16 you could pick. 11, 12 to 15, 16. Is there a huge time span there? I don't think so. After that what? Nothing. So I don't see, maybe they'll set up a committee to look into it. That itself will be a question for us. But advancing the base year, I don't see. Yeah, let's move to the next page. Data availability, structural stability. Already we spoke of extreme events. Now again I am talking about it, structural stability. Both of them are related. And you want to compare your economy with the global economy, any other economy, then the comparability lies in how close is your base here. We are producing jute. What are you producing? I am producing iPods. Where is the comparison? All over the world, a country like India and most of the countries, advanced category, we produce almost the same thing. So comparability lies in how recent has been your base year. The base year. please, expression like this, make it a part of your mind. You are like this. Next, there should be a table. Ah, yes. You know, till you have read it in the table, you have not read it at all. Purpose means why? Inflation, all this. If you write this itself, examiner is mighty thrilled with you. Just this. Same thing has been captured in a table. So you make notes, a lot of it, make notes. This is the making of notes. It relieves you of the extra time that you would have otherwise had to spare to make notes. This is your notes. You don't have to make any other notes, which means at least 45 minutes of your time can be used for something else equally productive. So the tables are your notes, pin them down. Tables are your notes. Synchrony, etc., you don't have to use such big word. You just say all over the world, this is a practice, so it allows for comparison. That's all. Now you will be getting another cute table base effect. Two examples, low base, high base. It distorts. If you say we grew 20% in the first quarter of 21, 22, 23, the COVID thing, people will laugh at you. 20%, how did you manage? That's not the norm. Then they will say you fell so steeply, from there you got up and you call it growth. So it's a distortion. And never, ever be a victim of distortions. Every word is NCERT word here. That's about the base effect. We have done the base here, we have done the base effect. Yeah, just to excite you a little, take a look at this also. The rankings, not this yet, ranks. Yeah. We are 5. I told you yesterday, from here we are already 3.7 apparently. But I'll tell you the, mischief. From here to here, Germany is in recession. We are growing at 6.5. Today, Hindu World Bank says you're going to grow at 6.3. They are falling. They are making it so easy for us to overtake them. I'm sure before Lok Sabha elections, our Prime Minister is going to say we are number 4. Which is, hold your head high. We are growing, but these guys are falling, making it easier for us. And it's not 4 actually, it could be more than this. Even these guys we can beat if this number is right. Should be right, I've taken it from decent paper. If this number is right, we are 3.75 already. 6 is guaranteed rate of growth. But there is a catch. I'll tell you about the catch. They're 4.3, 3.75. What does it take you? And they're falling. So that should be possible in a year or two to beat them also and be here. Next is this. unbridgeable. There is no bridge between this and this. Okay. And I'll give you some happiness at the next set of rankings. We are already 3 by this purchasing power parity. China is 1, America is 2. These guys don't matter. So we are here. I'll explain all this a little later. So yeah, we can, up to you, nothing to remember here. So now, you know, we have to understand the GDP and GVA. Since 2015, there has been this notion in our NSO dictionary, National Statistical Office dictionary, GVA, gross value added. You know, GVA. To understand the GVA, you have to understand GDP at market prices and GDP factor cost. Very simple. You would love to, understand, okay, market prices today, the GDP is, our GDP, 3.75 trillion dollars, or 3 crores or whatever. 100 rupees is your GDP. Market prices, 100 rupees is your GDP. Remember, I am able to sell rice at 3 rupees because I'll make the numbers very, very simple. Let's not get real about it. Let's understand simply. I'm able to sell rice at 3 rupees a kg because the government chipped in with 1 rupee of subsidy. If the government did not chip in, I will charge 4 rupees. Subsidy makes it affordable. What's the point of subsidy? Subsidy is there to help people afford goods and services. Go to Karnataka, check into any transport, public transport. I think if you are a woman, it's free. But don't think only women are benefiting. The 100 rupees you are not spending if you are a woman, that 100 that is unspent goes for the family expenditure. So help a woman, help the whole family. Because the diverted expenditure helps the whole family. So, I'm making the public transport affordable to you by subsidizing your travel in the public transport. So, the purpose of subsidy is make it affordable. So, the government says, okay, I'll come in with 10 rupees so that you can sell it at, at an affordable price. So, 100 is the GDP. The whole of 100 is one single vehicle. Electric vehicle, of course, of which 10 rupees is the subsidy. Subsidy. And 5 rupees is the tax, indirect tax. Direct taxes don't come into the picture at all. We're talking of GDP. 5 rupees is a GST, let's call it GST, indirect tax. Now, you want to know how competitive you are? For you to understand how competitive you are, what did factors cost you? Labor, land, capital, entrepreneurship, whatever, all that. What did they cost you? Subsidy, if the government chooses to give, it will give, otherwise it will not give. If you go by subsidy, you are not tracking how competitive you are. Indirect tax 5 rupees, it can be 10 or 15 or 20 or 25 or 0 also. Indirect tax has nothing to do with how competitive I am. Give me tax incentive, I'll be competitive, but I will be competitive. You can use taxes to make us competitive or make us uncompetitive, that's okay. But how competitive I am irrespective of all other external factors. Indirect tax carried out. It has nothing to do with how productive I am. Take out 5 from 100, you are at 95. But then you are at 95, don't boast that you are so competitive that you can make the best of the goods at 95. No! Government gave you 10, otherwise you are at 105. This guy produces at 100. I am producing at 95. Can I feel superior to him? No! Like Chinese goods, they are heavily subsidized, they are dumping in. What's the deal between European Union and China? They are saying you are subsidizing and so you are competitive, so we'll keep you out or impose some tax on you so that we level the playing field. How competitive you are, that is shown in the add the subsidy. You are 105. Don't think you are 95. You need to work harder, use technology, be more productive, coordinate even better. And so that you are 95. But for the time being, you are 105 is what it takes for you to produce. So now, the market price is 100. Market price is 100. And from there you want to come to the factor cost. You have to do two things. Plus subsidy minus indirect tax. I will say GST. You have to, 4 factors, what have they cost you? That is what is a factor cost. Subsidy, external, add it. Indirect tax, nothing to do. It is not a factor cost. You cut that out. So 100 minus 5 plus 10 gets you 105, 105, which is your factor cost. That tells you how competitive you are. Don't bask in the shadow of the government which is subsidizing. The Chinese guys are being criticized and excluded in European Union. Tomorrow, prelim question. They are saying you are subsidizing. They are capturing the electric vehicle market. They'll beat everybody in the world. Nobody else is close to China. Scale is good, product is good, price is good. But price is good because the government is subsidizing. Otherwise, others can beat them. Now, so if you are subsidizing, then there is no great charm to it. Initially you have to support by subsidy so that there is an industry. Gradually you have to withdraw the subsidy so that you are out in the market. So, this is the factor cost. This was the number, till 2015 when the National Statistical Office, those days it used to be called the Central Statistical Office, till then they were giving us 2 numbers. This and this, of course, nominal, real, current, constant. They were giving, plus they were giving this also. This they were giving. Now they are not giving you this. Instead, they have introduced a new concept which is called the GVA. I'm talking about it now. GVA. I don't think it's difficult at all. Follow me carefully. GVA. Very simple, very, very simple. I have worked hard to make it simple. Otherwise, if you go in the same article, there is no consistency in the application of the concept. Between 2 articles, so you forget about it. So, read whatever else. I don't think there will be clarity because that's my experience. I must have read lots and lots of sources. There is no clarity. And because I have no choice, I have to be clear. I'm not comfortable otherwise. You won't be comfortable. And the question hasn't come. I was ruling out the question and I was right. Now I get a sense that time has come for a question on GVA. Let's see it. Very simple. So we are talking of indirect taxes. Direct taxes come into play after the production and sale. I got my profit, corporate tax. I've got my income, income tax. That is post-production and sale. We are in the production process, so we have to deal only with the indirect taxes only, GST, and where there is no GST, excise and VAT. Now, see, in indirect taxes, the government of India separated two basic types of taxes. Basic, very, very basic. This part is production taxes. Production taxes. This part, product. Where there is a tax, there is subsidy also, there may be. So production taxes and subsidies. Product taxes and subsidies, let me explain this. So you have a factory and you produce certain goods, XYZ, X goods you produce. You have a factory. Factory means land. Land means you bought the land or leased it or whatever. You invested in a place and that may have. For investing in what is the news that I have in Sikkim, there is a glacial lake burst and lots of damage. And one of the pharma companies also got damaged and they have closed down for a while. Why are they in Sikkim? Why not in Noida? Because Sikkim gives you tax concession. If you invest in Sikkim, lots of GST concession, etc., etc. Why am I talking about that? Set up your factory there. Buy land. If you buy land, stamp duty will be there. That's a production. I bought land, I want to put up a pharma firm there. Even before I produce a tablet, the land that I bought, stamp duty I had to pay. So production tax is something which is incurred even before the production start. At times, or it has nothing to do. Whether I'll produce the medicine, the tablet, pharma or not is something else. I bought the land, I paid the stamp duty, production tax. And then when I go to Sikkim, the government gives me subsidy, that is a production subsidy. And okay, that is the production part. And I have to keep paying maybe some other taxes, duties, whatever. I gave you the example. So there is a column called the production. There is a column called product. Production irrespective of whether you are producing or not. And once there is a production base, there is some tax being paid. I told you stamp duty, etc. You got that? After that you produce. When you produce, a separate type of tax kicks in, which is what you call GST. So I've got my company, pharma firm, in Sikkim, production taxes, production subsidies, leave them out. We are talking about product taxes, product subsidies. When I say tax, invariably indirect tax. Now, I'm producing multivitamin tablets I'm producing. Why? Sikkim, it sells and all that. I produce there, bring it to the country. Tablets. Each tablet carries this thing GST of 5%. 5%. And the government says, okay, you're producing in Sikkim, how much does it cost you to produce a tablet? I told the government, sir, 1 rupee. The government says, okay, 10 paisa I'm chipping in with subsidy, make it 90 paisa so that you can sell it affordably. Tax, so 5%, whatever. So when I'm producing something, there is an indirect tax, and in the process of this product, whatever, subsidy. Just as you got tax and subsidy here, you got tax and subsidy here too. Now the great innovation from factor cost to the GVA is, here what did we remove? The entire indirect tax we removed. What did we add? Entire subsidy we added. Here, we don't touch this. What you do here is, the indirect tax you remove, add the subsidy of the product. I told you 10 paisa, I got the subsidy to produce the tablet so that I can sell it at 90 paisa. That subsidy you add 5% of GST, which is 1 rupee, 5% is 5 paisa. That 5 paisa you remove, you get 95, and 10 paisa you add. 105 paisa is the tablet's market price. Is the GVA. GVA prices are not market, they are called basic prices. Here you got market price, for GVA you got basic price. So the calculation that we have done, initial bifurcation between product and production. After that we have seen the indirect tax and the subsidy here, and here we have not, we completely. Production, product. We are not touching the production part at all because that is constant. We are only talking about the production because we are only talking about product being generated. Why? They have chosen to keep this as constant, they have chosen to announce it. I don't want to go into the political economy of it. That is one way of figuring out market, factor, in between you got the GVA. That's one way of figuring out, and they have adopted it. A lot of countries adopt it, but what exactly you mean by the GVA could differ from country to country. In our country, this is the concept that we adopt. Having said that, we are in the product thing. Cut the indirect tax out, add the subsidy. What you get is the basic price of this tablet. How many tablets? 100 I produce, my factory produces 100. So 100 tablets, each tablet 105 basic price, and then multiply that with 100. Like that for the entire economy, you cut the indirect tax out and bring in the subsidy on the product. What you have is all the goods and services produced in the country at basic prices. Add it up, simple calculator. What you get is GVA, gross value added. That is the concept exactly as it operates. After that, in my notes also I have given, you want an even clearer, better explanation, you go to thick fellow. In that, even clearer explanation is there. Few words obviously will be more there, and this is the basic concept. I hope you understood, but I am waiting. Anyone with a doubt, most welcome. Take your time. First you take your time, because this concept demands a little more attention. Take your time, ask me whatever you like. Your job is to understand what I said. Nothing more, nothing less. Just understand. I did all the homework. So you just got to understand what I have taught you. That's all. Don't go here and there unnecessarily. Understand. Yeah. Louder. GVA concept. The entire thing. If I could request you, where exactly do you think I should throw more light? See, in the factor cost, what we have done is eliminated indirect taxes for the entire process of, we didn't differentiate product and production, eliminated all. Here the government has come up with this notion that, certain things have nothing to do with the actual making of the product. So the stamp duties, and some people have given the example of the land tax, and some people have given the example of property tax, all that. So they have separated product, production. This is incurred regardless of whether you are producing or not. So don't touch it, add it. Separating that is not being truthful. This is where your action is, and add the subsidy and remove. I can understand factor cost. Why? you know, indirect tax and subsidy, you do the math and you come to a figure where how competitive you are. Factor cost. Market price is market price. But in between bringing GVA and cutting out the production, keeping only the product, and based on the product coming to the basic price, all this, I'm not convinced, I'm not in minority. I'm in the majority, I'm not convinced. Very, very senior people are also questioning. But the concept is this: product, production. Don't touch this, it happens whether you are producing or not. This to the between factor cost in this is the gap. This will tell you how competitive you are, this GVA, it will tell you. But I thought the factor cost is a pretty decent concept, it will tell you how competitive you are, but they have done this little bit of a tinkering. You got it now? Yeah. It's interesting, very interesting. Why they have done, I'm not convinced. And I told you lots and lots. See, as modern people, when we see something like a child, organically, we would like to connect. We would like to see why, what, how, and where there is, something beyond rationality. So that's the GVA and basic prices. All the basic prices are just like your GDP is a combination of all the market prices, or at last year, base year, whatever, constant, real constant and all that. GVA is the combination of the adding up of the all the basic prices of goods and services. Basic price, we have seen how you arrive at this basic price. Indirect out, subsidy in, confined to the product, and the production remains constant. So what do you call that? There is a market price and there is basic price. Market, basic. But mark, you need to have factor cost, otherwise the table is not complete. But the government has stopped declaring the factor cost GDP ever since the new series kicked in from 2015. All right. So we have done a little bit more. Now I have 2-3 concepts more before we go into the 3 methods of approaching the estimates of GDP. One is transfer payments. Another is imputed value. Imputed value. Let me explain. See, the government gives scholarships, pensions. That is the financial transfers. I'm the government. These are the CSIR people. You know, they are working. Tomorrow there will be Shanti, all the Bhatnagar awardees tomorrow. I'm giving them 100 rupees. You take this 100, you work on plasma physics, quantum dots. You work, I'm giving them 100. They're working. Now, GDP captures only that where there is an exchange. I gave 100, I bought this. But here I gave 100 of fellowship, and what am I getting? I got nothing. Day after tomorrow, they will get a Nobel. I'm not interested in all that. GDP is about a financial, economic, market transaction. You give, you get. Here I'm giving, I'm not getting anything. So the transfer payments, much as they are desirable, both for equity as well as for efficiency, the fact is they are outside the economic transaction framework, and therefore transfer payments are outside the GDP calculation. transfer payments. I'll give you examples. You know, again I'll give Andhra example. Right to Bharosa. We are all farmers. We have a bit of risk. That's not fully covered. We are nervous. We run to the money lender. He will make life difficult for us. Easy, whatever, difficult. So if the government can put in the bank account of every farmer by definition is a landowner. If you are a tenant, you are not a farmer. If you are a sharecropper, you are not a farmer. Only if you own the land, you are a farmer. So the government will put 100 rupees, whatever rupees. Like our own government of India does, Kisan Samman Yojana, 6,000 rupees in 3 installments is passed on to every farmer. What do you call that? What is the government getting? Nothing. Means it may be getting everything. Please, I'm talking like a GDP analyst. I'm not talking like a person concerned about the future of my country or the welfare of the people. So in GDP economics, a financial transfer for which there is nothing, no good or service being, it's not a purchase, it's a transfer. So they are outside the GDP number. Financial transfer payments are not a part of the GDP. The reason is this, it's a narrow reason, but yeah. But then, there is enough discretion for the people in the statistics office whether they call Prime Minister's Kisan Samman a transfer or they call it something else. So please understand, there was a time not long ago when you could clearly say this is black and this is white. Now, a lot of grey has come. Too much of discretion. So I really can't say how the GDP accounts are, capturing the right to Bharosa, Kisan Samman. But it's a classical financial transfer. And in Karnataka, Madhya Pradesh, lot of women are getting these financial transfers. All that. Are they going to include that in the GDP? Or is it being a financial transfer outside GDP? We have no idea. That the government will decide. But the technical concept of a financial transfer is this. Now you come to the imputed value. Yeah.
Transfer payments and subsidies are same.
Wonderful. Yeah. I'm giving you 100 rupees of fellowship, financial transfer. But subsidy is tied to the purchase. Buy a kg of rice at 3 rupees. Subsidy is built into the price of a product. So there is no subsidy without a sale. But there is a financial transfer, there is no sale at all. Maybe he is not spending that 100. Even if he is spending, it doesn't relate to me. I'm giving him 100. I'm getting nothing in return. Here I'm giving a subsidy for which there is a purchase. So it's up to you whether you would equate the two or you will separate the two. It's up to you. There is no technical guidance on this. Okay. Got it? Now imputed value. Imputed value, see, let's say you are from Indore. You are from Indore. That's your native. You're living in your own house. And then you get into the civils and you are posted to Chennai. You give the house on rent. You are in Chennai. After 5 years, you get deputed to MP government. 5, 10, whatever years, you come back. And then you occupy your own house. Now the point is, when you were giving it for rent, that 100 rupees got into GDP, added to GDP, because you were earning it. It's a service you are providing, you're being paid for that, etc. But when you are occupying your own house, the same 100 rent also becomes a part of the GDP, you call that imputed value. All the self-occupied houses, the rental value become a part of the GDP. Why? Somebody will ask me. Why means, you see, I can talk this way, that way. Because the government cannot find out the data about every house as to whether the owner is in occupation or it's been rented out. Government can't find out. So it knows how many houses are there, property tax is being collected, and accordingly it knows the market value of the rental and add it up and call it a part of the GDP. But today we got technology, you just got to enter all the details, and today we got the technology. But I'll tell you the real reason. Real is always political, please. What is the real reason here? The real reason is when you add rental value of self-occupied houses, that amounts to a decent amount of money for the whole economy, and so your GDP looks bigger than it is. So for inflating the GDP, boosting the GDP without real addition of a good or a service, if you can impute the value of the rental and announce the number, then surely the number will be bigger. That is what a very respectable economist wrote, and I thought, yeah, he has a point. Otherwise, technology allows you to, this guy is occupying, this guy is renting. It's very clear. So how can you say we can't count and all that when you're counting everything else? Why can't you count this? But then that will deduct from the GDP, which no government will accept because, their pride comes from the GDP number. Large economy, fastest growing, this, that. So the imputed value, the transfer payments, these are the two concepts you have to know. And before we go to that purchasing power parity, India being 3, etc., we need to see how do you estimate the GDP, what are the 3 methods that we have to see.